Good morning. Can I take your order?
Can I get a tall chai?
A large black coffee.
A what?
Large black coffee.
Do you mean a venti?
No, I mean a large.
He means a venti. Yeah, the biggest one you got.
Venti is large.
No, venti is 20.
Danny.
Yeah. Large is large. In fact, tall is large, and grande is Spanish for large. Venti's the only one that doesn't mean large. It's also the only one that's Italian. Congratulations, you're stupid in 3 languages.
Look, Dick, venti is a large coffee.
Really? Says who? Fellini?
How much is that? Here's a 10.
Do you accept lira, or is it all
You know
euros
what? Just
now?
keep the change. Jesus, Dan, you know what they call the sizes here. You know what? You've been picking fights with everybody. The girl at the party.
She said ASAP.
Oh, ASAP. Oh, I'm sorry. Huge crime.
It's like 24/7, or been there, done that. You hate that too.
I don't hate it enough to let it ruin my day. It's getting worse. You know, man, the sun is shining, but you have lost the ability to take any joy in life. I can't stand it anymore. You're just a miserable dick now. You're mean to everybody. And FYI, it's called a venti because it's 20 ounces. 20. Venti.
Is that true?
All right, and away we go. What's up, everybody? Welcome to this level of All Up in Your Week, the best hour of your week.
You're welcome.
And with me, as always,
Money here. I'm live. You're hearing me on tape delay. There is Google all over my face from the mothership reminding you that I am not your fucking guy, Buster.
And this is Flash Rodman asking D Money specifically, true that or not true that you will watch and enjoy the Snyder Cut of the Justice League. All 4 hours of it, baby.
Savior of the universe. Not true that. Fuck that noise. Not a chance, dude. You couldn't pay me enough money.
I beg to differ. And this is Lou, a.k.a. Puerto Rican Judo.
Woo!
Coming to you live from the All Up in Your Geek studio. And with that, gentlemen, let's geek up.
Saddle up your horse.
You've been edited again. All right, so we got some emails, eh?
We do. Multiple. Straight to the sack.
Here's the mail, it never fails. It makes me wanna wag my tail. When it comes, I wanna wail.
Hello, my most excellent geeks. Happy belated Mario Day to all. I heard you guys mention possibly doing an All Up in Your Geek Mount Rushmore and thought, why don't you call it, drumroll please, Mount Geekmore? You guys have so many different tastes that if you could agree on 4 of anything to be on a Mount Geekmore, it would be nothing short of a miracle. I concur.
Yeah.
On another note, WandaVision. I get why you didn't like the finale, but does that make it a failure? I mean, there are tons of shows that are critically acclaimed, but have shitty endings. Look at The Sopranos. Fade to Black. Make it subjective. I wasn't a fan either, but I mean, we clearly got a glimpse of what is to come. Wanda in the Doctor Strange movie, a potential X-Men crossover, and more Skrulls. Anyway, I've been enjoying the show, and you guys certainly are the best hour of my week. Google for everyone. No Bill, just Ted. P.S. I miss saddling up too. Yeah!
There it is.
Mount Geekmore, huh?
Well, yeah, so let's start with that. So does he mean, he or she, I guess it's a he. It's just Ted.
Yeah.
Does
Theodore Logan.
No Bill S. Presquire.
Right.
So does he mean, when he says Mount Geekmore, does he just mean the 4 geeky things that we love most?
I don't know if it's
What do you
that.
think?
I don't know if it's that, or if he's referring to that the 2 emails that we got from that guy that was trying to settle the bet with his friend, where we said if we had our Mount Rushmore of video games or of franchises or of characters or whatever. That's how I took it anyway in listening to you read it. That it has something to do with that. I did say last week that maybe we would do our own Mount Rushmore of whatever. We just have to decide what it would be. Would it be characters? Would it be franchises? Would it be video games? Would it be publishers, developers?
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess to answer his question, the reason we didn't call it Mount Geekmore is because we received an email from someone who had labeled it the Mount Rushmore of gaming. So your suggestion, it's a great one, but I'm reading an email. You know what I mean? So when we do our 4, Lou, that you're talking about, we can call ours the Mount Geekmore.
All right.
I guess that makes sense. But again, so he doesn't mean 4 things, or you don't think he means 4 things separately, just like, well, this is my favorite comic book, and this is my favorite game, and this is my favorite movie.
That's how I took it. Like the geek, like video games, comics, movies, like that's how I took it. That's how it read to me. I don't know.
That might not be a bad idea either. But
you know what?
I think
we
if
couldn't even agree what would be on that.
We can't even.
Categories.
We can't even agree what Mount Rushmore is in the first place. But to break that, to do something that would require 4 geeky things and why they're geeky, like we couldn't even talk right now. We can't even mention anything superhero around money. He's very sensitive right now. He's not happy.
Well, wait a second. Let's start with the fundamentals. It's 2021. Do we even know if Mount Rushmore is a male or a female anymore?
This is a good point. And why is it called Mount?
Right.
Who's mounting it? Oh, that's funny. And then what was the second part? The second part was what? WandaVision, right?
Yeah. He wants to know, WandaVision. He wants to know, does it mean that the entire show is a failure just because the finale, we didn't like it? And I don't think so. I don't think you can deem the entire show or an entire show a failure just because the finale's bad. But I think what I was getting at was that I didn't enjoy the rest of the show. And while you guys might have, and he may have, I'm not a Marvel guy, a comic guy, a superhero guy. So the fact that I'm automatically disqualified because I don't understand the history that's behind it or the crossovers that are coming because of it. I mean, those are problems in and of themselves. I should just be able to watch a show from start to finish and have it be this self-contained thing, especially because going into WandaVision, I knew it was superhero related, but I didn't realize that it was going to rely so much on what had happened prior to this and what is to come after this, not in lore, but in reality.
Right.
So that, to me, is why I called it a failure, because I could not enjoy it as a standalone from start to finish. And the reason I was intrigued by it in the beginning, with it being black and white and sort of a throwback to an old sitcom, was just really, I guess, poo-pooed by them. It was like a 3-minute explanation that related to nothing, and it was just, I don't know, I guess a disappointment.
All right. Bob?
Yeah. I think, it is an interesting point, and I think it applies to movies as well, where, if you have an ending that kind of sucks, does it ruin the whole movie? If they stick the landing, or if they don't stick the landing, does that spoil the whole rest of the whatever it is that you watched? I think it could go either way. There are movies that they were awesome and really good, and you were into it, and then you got to the end, and it was like, and they just didn't stick that landing. But the lead up to that ending was so good and so enjoyable that you could almost forgive, the sucky ending. But the problem I had with this show is that they gave you crumbs, and they gave you so little that it was all kind of, the way that they presented it, the way that they revealed everything, the way that they built everything up and ramped everything up and kept you in the dark, it was all hinging on that ending, unfortunately. And when it didn't land and it kind of, face planted, with a dry fart, it left a very bad taste in my mouth. And the guy in the email said, oh, well, yeah, doctors, led into Doctor Strange. And it, I guess it did. But then he said, oh, X-Men crossover. I didn't see anything about an X-Men crossover, at least from what I saw. Okay, yeah, the dude dressed up as old school Quicksilver, but yes, I know they are going to do the X-Men, but I didn't find anything to me that, if Magneto popped up, yes. If like fucking Professor X showed up, yes. If there was something about what Wanda was doing that was maybe lead to mutation, I'd say yes, but there was really none of that. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Lou.
No, I agree 100%. I don't know if just having someone portray Quicksilver from, X-Men in another universe or in another timeline or however you want to look at it, is it enough? I don't think it is enough to say that that's a X-Men plant.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So, I mean, yeah. So for me, it did kind of fail, because like I said, it wasn't like I was getting all these other juicy things throughout all these other episodes. It wasn't like fucking Doctor Strange showed up in one episode and kicked some ass, or, fucking Spider-Man showed up and had a big epic, did something, or we didn't get any of that. It was a lot of build up. It was a lot of like, ooh, this could be something. And what's that over here? And ooh, and it was leading to this big, epic finale. And it was like, okay, yeah, White Vision showed up, and okay, and we beat Agatha Harkness, and now she's okay, and she's the Scarlet Witch, and she's in a cabin, and well, hey guys, we'll see you in Doctor Strange Part 2. Mm-hmm. And it was like, no, fuck you, man. Like, like that sucked. I'm sorry, that sucked.
I felt there were a lot of plot holes or unexplained characters, and just, you guys sold this whole Marvel universe to me with the story and the backstory and the characters being the strong suits. And I remember the episode before the last, I forget what was it, episode 8, I think, where I said to you, Lou, I specifically said, I don't see them being able to wrap up all of these loose ends, all of these characters, all of these stories in just 45 minutes. Right. And you were like, well, no, there's plenty of time. And I was like, all right, you know what? Let's wait. Let's see. But I think the problem with the finale for me was that, aside from not answering any of those questions, was that it was the exact superhero finale that I expected, that this stupid action sequence with no explanations. And it was just like mindless garbage. And I want to address specifically some of the endings that our friend here mentioned, The Sopranos specifically. Now, I really enjoyed that show, and I really enjoyed that show way back when it aired in the early 2000s.
Great show.
And I'm not going to lie. Yeah, right. A big part of the reason I enjoyed it is because it was filmed locally. A lot of the places in that show I drive by every day. All 3 of my kids were born in the hospital they frequent in the early seasons.
Right.
And then I spent a tremendous amount of time in the hospital that he spends time in season 6. So I just saw a lot of – it was fun for me. Mm-hmm. However, I did think it was a little bit over the top as a whole. And the finale, while it did leave a lot to be desired, I can at least look back on it and say, hey, you know what? That was creative. I may not have liked it, but it was different. It was something. And maybe WandaVision should have done something like that, because at least there's an explanation for leaving plot holes when you give an unexpected surprise.
I don't disagree with that. I mean, the only argument there would be that Sopranos ran longer, but I don't think it makes a difference. If the plan for this show, for WandaVision, was to have more seasons after it, then maybe I could understand them leaving some of these plot holes to lead into season 2. overall, do I think that the finale made it a terrible show? I guess it depends on how you look at it. You know, like Bob said, they were given breadcrumbs and stuff like that. I agree with that. But I think that for me, building up to the finale is what was fun. Unfortunately, like our friend Deadpool said, they just didn't stick to superhero landing. You know, it didn't happen. And I enjoyed all of this speculation and talking about who could potentially pop up and who this cameo would be and what, you know, Quicksilver meant, and would Hugh Jackman show up as, you know, Wolverine and shock the fucking Marvel universe. And none of that happened, but it was fun to talk about leading up to it. And maybe that's because we've been isolated for a year and we don't have shit to do. And, you know, this was something just to distract the mind. But I think that if they would have planned this a little bit better and added a couple of additional things that even we spoke about here with the minimal knowledge, like I think Bob, of the three of us, has the most knowledge of how, you know, the comic series works and the tie-ins and everything like that. I think it could have been better with a little bit more planning and maybe one more episode instead of, well, no, 2 more episodes, because they did 8, right? It was an 8-show series.
No, I think it wasn't it 9?
9? Maybe it was 9.
Oh, it was 9?
I don't know.
All right, well, either way, if they would have went to 10, and if they went to 9, if they would have went maybe to 12, I think they would have been able to do a little bit more. And I don't know why they would have done that. I don't consider it a complete failure. I just don't. If this is supposed to be a bridge to whatever Marvel has planned next, it's a very weak foundation. It's not as strong to me as the first 4 phases of movies. Those movies were solid. Like, even the worst of those movies was a good movie. And this show just, you know, it just was not indicative of what Marvel has done over the last however many years, for me. You know what I mean? So I was disappointed by it, and I still am. And even having watched it again, I'm just like, oh, man. You know, like I wanted more. I wanted more. And I demand more. I'm demanding more from the movies. When they start this next phase of movies, they better fucking hit the floor running.
No mas! No mas!
You're coming. Opening day for the first one.
D-Money's coming. We're dragging.
Oh, I'll come all right. I'll come all over that piece of shit.
Splurge.
I want to just say one final thing. I found out recently, I don't know how I missed this, but when these shows were kind of announced and rolling out, they talked to Kevin Feige, you know, the mastermind behind this whole cinematic universe for Marvel. And they said, hey, Kev, you know, are fans going to have to watch these shows, you know, to stay in the loop, you know, for the film? And his answer was no. And, you know, I wish I would have known that ahead of time. I don't know how I missed it, but I wish I would have known that ahead of time, because unfortunately, what that leads me to believe is that very little to nothing of significance is going to happen in these shows, because their bread and butter is the movies. The casual people, the mass market people, they're going to the movies, and they don't want to leave those people out. So, you know, the diehards like me and Lou, you know, we're going to these shows as well to get all this extra stuff. But if we can't leave out, you know, the fucking lazy asses who aren't going to watch everything, then really, like, I think, unfortunately, and I hope I'm wrong, these shows are going to be like WandaVision, where it's little crumbs, it's little tidbits, like, ooh, this thing might happen over here, but hey, guys, it's you know what it is? You know what it is, Derek? I'll tell you exactly what it is. Do you remember, like, the fucking Raw before the pay-per-view in wrestling? Where it was like, you know, where the big match was, you know, fucking Stone Cold versus The Rock, and they'd show up on Raw, and what would they fight before the pay-per-view? No, they'd be in a mixed tag. Right. and that's what these shows are. This is a fucking mixed tag match before the pay-per-view, where it's like a lot of like, oh, something's gonna go, oh no, to buy the pay-per-view, because that's where the shit's gonna go down, and that's what these shows are.
Yeah, and you know what? And I get it. And failure, if I use that term, it was a failure for me. But if that offends you, don't call it a failure. I don't give a shit. As far as I'm concerned, it sucked. It sucked, and it did not make me want to further myself in that universe, in that world. I don't want to watch any more shows. I'm not going to see the movies. Like, I'm good. I'm out. That's the best thing it did for me. It put some closure. I already knew, but you know what? I was like, hey, for the show. We'll do it for the show. Well, fuck that noise. Not doing it anymore for the show. Fuck the show. And on that note, thank you, Just Theodore.
I'm not as excited for the next show as I was before, and it's a shame because it looks good, but
yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, well, thank you, Just Theodore, for that email. Moving on.
It's just Ted.
It's just Theodore or Theodore. Hey, geeks. It was a hectic week, so I am a few days behind on all of my podcasts, including yours. The audacity of this no-named email writer to just blast you guys with nonsense. Here is my take on things, though. I can see that D-Money is very critical of games, but I do think recently he has been a lot more open to newer things like watching a comic book-based show, PC gaming, and even buying a new console with first-party accessories. In fact, his review of the PS5 headset helped me get off the fence about buying one, and I love it. I think each of you guys have things you like, things you hate, and things you can take or leave. While I may not always agree with you, I can always see where you're coming from. Soon enough, I will catch up on episodes. But for now, I just suck. Arcadio, a.k.a. Puerto Rican Culo. Am I saying that right, Lewis?
That was close. It's culo.
Culo. Sorry.
Nice.
Well, let me just go back to this no-name emailer. He wasn't a no-name emailer. He had a name. But for whatever the case was that day, it just sent me over the edge. We're all human beings here. We have good days. We have bad days. And in reading that email, sometimes I proofread shit before I put it on air because I want to make sure there are no grammatical errors or shit I'm going to stumble over. But I didn't that day. So as I was reading this email, it was the straw that broke the camel's back. And I think I just had enough at that point. We may have had 3 or 4 emailers in a row from week to week that had not so nice things to say. And while look, I'm all for everybody having their opinion and each one being as valid as the last one, but I just didn't think that his angle was tactful, and nor was mine, but that was by design. I wasn't going to give his name at that point because I had frankly had enough, as you may all remember. But that being said, that's what you get. You get it, you write in and you act like a douchebag. I tell the people I know all the time, you want to get treated like an asshole? Act like a fucking asshole. And that's what this guy did. He acted like an asshole, and I treated him like an asshole. So if that offended any of our listeners, tough titties.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of didn't know what was going on either. I know I could see the look on Bob's face, and he was like, "What just happened?" But I mean, yeah, you're right. You're right. We have. I don't think it's any secret that we have different tastes. You like it or you don't. I mean, we're not. I don't think that for all of the time that we've been doing it, and this is now level 130. I don't ever think that we've ever backtracked to be apologetic for anything that we've said here to someone, to each other, especially to each other. I think we understand that whatever is said, and that's it. It's not an offense thing. It's not a personal thing. So I'm not going to start now.
Right. Look, and I probably could have done a better job differentiating between where I cut the email off and where I sort of went promo mode. But again, it was what it was. It happened. It may not happen like that every day of the week if I'm having a better day, but it is what it is. So the next time the unnamed emailer, whose name I once again shall not mention, wants to write in, be a little more tactful with your language and the words you use to describe us, the guys you don't know, because I don't think you guys would have wanted me to finish that email. I'll just leave it at that.
Okay.
There might have been some things. Yeah, there might have been some things included in that email that would have done a whole lot more damage than the direction I took it.
Right. As far as you being critical and stuff like that and doing a little bit more, I kind of agree with that. I mean, I've not heard you be this upbeat about gaming in quite some time, which is great.
A lot of drugs. A lot of drugs.
Whatever it might be, it's still good. And you, even though you hated Wanda and WandaVision and it sucked the life out of you, I was impressed that you got through all those episodes. I wasn't expecting you to last throughout the end. I thought you were going to tap after the second or third one. So you exceeded my expectations. You were the best thing to come out of WandaVision.
And you know what? I had to watch a number of those episodes twice because they put me to sleep.
Wow. So you did double time.
That's right.
That's funny.
Thank you, Arcadio. It's always nice to hear from you, buddy.
Yeah, man, and get caught up. When you get caught up, keep sending them emails, bro.
That's right. And that concludes my fondling of this week's sack. Bob, conquer my fucking mountain.
Whoa. Well, D-Money's Tough Titties has been brought to you by the new novel, To Conquer a Mountain by R.S. Denker, the exciting tale of one man's road to redemption. Available right now on Amazon.com. Boom.
Boom.
So, gentlemen, did you see this quick story before we get into it? Did you see this quick story about this jerk-off in the United Kingdom? This guy escapes from jail last November and comes out of hiding to buy the new Call of Duty and gets caught and sent back to prison.
Enemy down.
Worth it.
What?
Look,
Right?
Gotta get that Call of Duty, man, no matter what. Jail's nothing without freaking Call of Duty.
Right?
We got a man down!
Wow, they said the man gave them a fake name.
Alex, don't.
And told them that he'd come to get the new Call of Duty because I can't sit around anymore in lockdown.
I'm tired of being told who my friends are.
Wait a minute. Hold on a second. Let's backtrack a little bit. This guy was in jail.
Yes, wait. For a 17-year extended sentence for robbery and firearms offenses.
So he was already in jail, and he got out, or he escaped?
He escaped.
He escaped successfully.
Yes, and he was in hiding.
Mission accomplished. Good work.
Since November.
Of 2020?
Yes. It doesn't say, but I'm assuming. Because it's yes.
And then he came out of hiding recently.
Yes.
To buy the new Call of Duty that actually came out in November.
I guess. I mean, it doesn't give any dates. The story was published the first week of March 6th. So it doesn't say that it happened 5 months ago. But here's the kicker. So the guy's, like you said, he escapes prison. He's in hiding. And then for whatever reason, he decides he's had enough of lockdown. So he's going to come out because he needs to get the new Call of Duty. And then he tries to get it by giving them a fake name. So this is where the story falls apart for me. I don't understand it. If he's just going to the store to buy a game that's 3 or 4 months old, why is he giving them his name?
Was he using a credit card, maybe? That's the only thing I can think of.
I don't know. It doesn't say. But
did he trade something in?
I'm here to pick up my pre-ordered copy of Call of Duty. Oh, my name? It's Guy Incognito. No, I am not an escaped convict. Of course I would like the warranty on my disc. Does it come with a strategy guide? Sure.
Hi, I'm here to pick up my late reserve for Call of Duty. My name? Oh, it's Mike Hunt.
Wow. So here's the kicker. His sentence was set to expire in 2024, and it looked like he might get out sooner on good behavior. Mm-hmm. But he couldn't wait, and now they've tacked 13 months onto the original sentence. So he won't be getting out till sometime in late 2025 or early 2026. All because he had to get the new Call of Duty.
Mission failed. We'll get him next time.
Justified.
Wow. What a poor asshole.
And really, a side note, what kind of gamer can't last more than a couple of months in hiding. Like, don't you got a backlog, bro?
Right, and how about a digital purchase?
Yeah, exactly.
So here it is. I've had enough of lockdown. Do I digitally purchase this game and not go back to jail? Or do I go to the local GameStop, give them a fake name, a stolen credit card, which we don't know if that's what he used, and go back to jail?
I don't know. I say give this guy the benefit of the doubt. He obviously did not sorry. He obviously did not like being confined. So
yes. Well, here's the real question, Lou.
You got friends nearby?
So he's going back to jail now, but are they going to let him bring the new Call of Duty?
I'm gonna guess that they already have the new Call of Duty where he's going.
Enemy is Alpha. So guys,
I'm sorry. That was
what he's going to be doing is he's going to be playing Call of Cooley because his Cooley ass is going to get pounded once he gets back. That's what he's going to be playing.
Whoa, they'll call his duty all right.
Yeah.
Oh man.
So guys, recently, Lou, maybe this would be a good story for you, seeing that your children are somewhat similarly aged to mine.
Mm-hmm.
But I've recently started to see myself a lot more. I mean, a lot more in my oldest son. Just his personality and the things he does, his schooling. We had a meeting, and a good one, not for misbehavior or anything, but they were parent-teacher conferences recently.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a meeting with his teacher, and he got glowing reviews, which was not me in school. But just hearing her talk about him and his personality and characteristics, it was almost like sitting in on one of my parent-teacher conferences when I was a kid. And the point I'm making here, or the reason I brought this up, is because I wanted to ask you if there was a point in time where you really started to, I don't want to say grow closer, because we've always been close, but identify closer with either one of your children.
Oddly enough, I see a lot of myself in both of them. And it's for all the wrong reasons. They have all the wrong things. I mean, they're very intelligent.
Did you get your drop dead good looks?
No, luckily they look like mom, so we're good. They both have a very short temper. They're both very opinionated. They're very quick at the mouth. And they're very curious about the things they should not be curious about. Notwithstanding, they got a lot of my good qualities too, which is good. But I think, right now...
You have good qualities?
I do have good qualities. You guys don't see my good qualities because you bring out the worst in me. I think my daughter is very much me. And I'm seeing it now that she is getting older. Like, I find myself talking to her the way I would talk to myself, and she understands that. Like, I can't talk to her like she's a kid. She doesn't want to hear that shit. So when she does something that she's not supposed to do, or she does some dumb shit, like I'll sit her down and I'm like, why are you doing this dumb shit? I don't understand. And she's like, I know, I was curious. And I'm like, well, listen, you can't do that. There's a reason why we teach you to do things this way, and we're teaching you to go right, and then you go left, and then you wonder why it turns out the way it does. You can't do that. But even in the teacher conferences, she's me. Smart kid, not focused, and talks too damn much.
Yeah, and I think the thing that was surprising to me is, of course, I see all the characteristics and the traits that, I sort of exhibit around my kids, and the ones I try to hide as well. But I think what was surprising to me was just the amount of things that we're not cognizant of on a day-to-day basis. The things that he just innately has in him and does that are carbon copies of me. You know, both good and bad.
Yeah.
And, you know, Bob, and I'm interested in your experience as well. I know your daughter's a little bit older than our kids are, but was there a point in time where it was just sort of like a shock, where it was just like, holy shit, I mean, she's a lot more like me than I ever realized?
Yeah, definitely. There definitely was a point. Like, I don't know if I could pin down exactly the age. You know, it might have been like, you know, maybe like 7 or 8, you know, where I realized that she pretty much had my, you know, my wanting to be like the showman, you know, to kind of, you know, put on the show and you know, entertain people. And then also where she grabbed, you know, a lot of my sarcasm and you know, wacky sense of humor. And I was like, oh crap. I was like, oh man, I created something here, and this is like, it's almost like a clone, you know, when it came to some of these things. And I was like, oh shit, I'm like, that's me. I'm like, you know, for better, for worse. But yeah, she did pick up a lot of, you know, a lot of those traits. And yeah, you know, it was shocking and eye opening, and you know, and then some of my not so good things either, because I sometimes I don't have a lot of patience and I get frustrated easily, and you know, she had some of that too. So, you know, I'm trying to like teach her, but I'm also trying to like teach myself, because I'm like, you know, this stuff I'm saying to her, I should say to me too. It's like, hey man, like calm down, don't let it get to you. You know, it's like, oh shit, I should do that too. So yeah, no, but there definitely was that point where it started to, you know, feel a little, you know, too familiar, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to take your own advice. You know, you could be a good parent to your kids and teach them all the right things, but for whatever reason, when you look in the mirror, you can't take your own advice.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, that was all I had there. I just wanted to know if you guys had similar experiences with, you know, it's incredible how we could just be having a discussion. Could be good, could be bad. It doesn't matter. And it's like I'm talking to myself.
Yeah.
You know, in so many ways, where I never pictured having kids as like having clones.
Right.
You know, and again, I think what took me aback here was, look, all kids are like their parents in some way. But just the amount of things there are where, and some of them are conscious and some of them are subconscious, good, bad. It's unbelievable, because at the time, a conversation I had with one of my best friends in the world who I've known forever. And at the time, I only had 2 kids. And I was explaining how my younger son, who is now my middle son, I was explaining how at that point in time, it was a lot easier for me to relate to my younger son, you know, than it was for me to relate to my oldest. And it was funny because my friend, again, who's known me since I was just a little boy, was just like, that's really funny, because I've always seen your oldest son as like a carbon copy of you. You know, so he saw it very early on. You know, and he's just like, he's like a little you. I mean, in all the good ways and all the bad ways. I mean, it's great. And I didn't see it at all. You know, where I was like, really? Like, I don't think we're that much alike. I mean, I adore him. But, I mean, and I think that's why the things he does that get under my skin so much and so easily, that's why they get under my skin. You know, and it's funny because, I mean, it's amazing as your kids get older and you're able to identify your own traits and characteristics in them, how I didn't think it would affect me the way it did. You know, like, it hit me like a fucking ton of bricks, where I was just like, when I heard his teacher telling me these things, you know, a third party, where that's when it really hit me. You know, and we got off the Zoom call, my wife and I, and we looked at each other, and I was just like, have you always perceived him this way? You know, and she's just like, oh yeah, he's your son, you know, but he's 8 years old. And it took me until he was 8 to see, I guess, what the rest of the world has already seen.
It's crazy when you see it. Like, it took me some time to see it, and I think the first time that I said something to my daughter and she made a sarcastic comment back to me, I was like, oh shit, I'm in trouble now.
Right.
I say that. He won a contest today. So he reads this book, this franchise of books. And it's relatively popular, at least in this area. It's called Dragon Masters. Mm-hmm. And I think there's 18 of them. So the new one came out, I don't know, 6 weeks ago or so. And the author, her name is Tracy West, maybe? The author does sort of like a contest. So I don't know exactly what the contest entails. But it's like you have to follow her on whatever platform she's on, and you have to continuously answer her questions and send in pictures. And it's not just like answer this question and you win type thing. Mm-hmm. It was a long, drawn-out process. And so while he was doing this, he was so excited about it. The new book had just come out, and he was like, Daddy, I'm going to win that contest. And, in the back of my head, I'm like, get the fuck out of here. Like there's probably 1 million people who entered this contest, and there's no chance he's going to win the contest, But, like, I had to, introduce that idea to him delicately because he's a kid. So, I didn't want to shit in his cereal. That's what you guys are for.
Right.
And I wanted to, be like, well, look, buddy, I mean, it's great that you're following along with this, and it's awesome that you're putting all this effort into it. But even if you get all the questions right, and even if you do, you connect all the dots and you do everything she tells you you're supposed to do, you're still going to be one of, 10,000 kids whose name doesn't get picked out of the hat. Mm-hmm. No, Daddy, I'm going to win this contest. And, he's a kid.
Yeah.
So an envelope comes for him today, and we can't figure out who it's from. So he rips open the envelope. We've been keeping an eye on the mail because my family will send gifts for Easter.
Right.
So, just yesterday they got a big box from my aunt, and, she sends them all gifts and whatnot. So I didn't want to let him open this envelope because I'm thinking to myself, it's probably an Easter card with a check in it and some candy, whatever. So we take it in the kitchen, my wife and I, and she opens it. And I go, what is it? And she pulls out the book. And I'm like, I thought he already had that book. And she's like, he won the fucking contest. So, of course, we're thrilled and he's happy. We bring it to him. We're like, buddy, you won the contest. We bring him the signed copy of the book, and it's autographed, and it's made out to him specifically. And he's got a super unique name with a unique spelling. And, and he's not that happy. He's just like, my wife and I are like fucking jumping up and down. We're like, holy shit, you won the fucking lottery.
Right.
And he's like, yeah I already got that book. And we're like, yeah, but buddy, I'm like, but buddy, this one's autographed by the author. You won that contest that I told you weren't going to win. And he looks at me and he goes, of course I won the contest. They knew I was going to win the contest.
That's funny.
And, right? And it was like looking at myself. Because I do it to be an asshole. You know what I mean, Bob? Like you were saying, you want to put on the show and it's fun, and like that's why I do it. But he's 8. Mm-hmm. He doesn't do it to put on a show. He really believed in his 8-year-old brain that he was going to win this fucking contest. That he wasn't going to win because one of 1 million wins, and he won the contest, and he wasn't satisfied.
It sounds to me. It sounds to me like he cheated because he's Vision. He knew it was going to happen.
Yeah.
But that's the type of thing where it was just like, Jesus Christ, this poor, innocent child is going to live the next, 70, 80 years of his life as D-Misery 2.0.
Yep. I know. I do the same thing. I think to myself, oh my God, I've created two angry, sarcastic gamers. That's what I've created.
Yeah.
Because I see how my son reacts when he loses in Fortnite, and I remember Super Mario Brothers 2 trying to beat that fucking frog and me losing my shit. And I remember Final Fantasy X trying to dodge all those lightning bolts, and my poor hamper didn't see it coming, and I smashed that shit to pieces. So that's what I foresee, and I was like, oh man, what did I do? What did I unleash?
But I think what's I think what's amazing to me about it is just how innate it is. Because when I go inside, I'm not D-Money. You know, I'm daddy, and I'm totally different, and I tone it down, and I'm kind, and I'm gentle. And yeah, look, I'm every parent. I yell. You know, I yell at my kids when I have to, and I'm no better than anybody else. But I don't let them see the worst parts of me. You know, I try to hide those parts of me at least as long as I possibly can. But like I said, they're innate. You know, they're genetically ingrained. And it really, really makes you think about nurture versus nature.
No, my kids know all my ugly sides. They're like, "Oh, we can't do that. Daddy's gonna get mad. Let me walk away."
Yeah.
Like, it's tough. I can't tone it down. Like I am who I am, and that's it. And you know, I can control. There's certain things I can control, and I have a lot of patience. But when they get me to that point, like, you know, it's over. It's like, don't touch that. And then, you know, they don't touch it, but they put their finger right next to it without touching it. And, you know, is that...
I'm not touching you. I'm not touching you.
Exactly. And, you know,
Daddy said don't touch that. Oh, no, Daddy's taking off his pants.
Oh, man.
Meg, who let you back in the house?
Well, guys, good news. I don't know if you've heard, but TMNT... Look, TMNT is back.
Oh, yeah. Cowabunga, dude.
Shredder's Revenge. Are you on board? Because I sure as shit am.
I'm on board. Listen.
If you loved WandaVision, D-Money, you're going to love Shredder's Revenge. They dropped the launch trailer last week. Dude, I was really fucking, one, caught off guard, and B, super fucking happy to see this. For those of you who don't know, you know, they're actually making a brand new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles fucking beat 'em up, you know, just like, you know, the original arcade game and Turtles in Time.
Yep.
And this one, I mean, finally, I don't know why it took so many fucking years for them to, you know, give you what you fucking wanted, but here it is. And first of all, you know, from the trailer, it looked really good. You know, going to be 4 players, you know, with the Turtles, and I really liked who the people were behind it. You know, looks like the publisher was the same publisher who did Streets of Rage 4, which came out and was very good. And the people who developed it were the same guys who did Scott Pilgrim video game, which is, right, you know, a lot of people consider one of the best beat 'em ups of all time. So I don't know, man. It looked really cool. I'm on board. You know, I was really happy to see it. So that was my, you know, geek out moment for last week. So.
Yeah, those games were always a lot of fun. My buddy has a Turtles in Time arcade cabinet.
Nice.
In his house.
Awesome.
So I not recently, but I've played that within the, you know, I don't know, past year or so.
Mm-hmm.
And they were a blast. They were back then. They still are now. So I'm excited for the new one, as excited as you guys would be. What's it for, Bob?
I think, you know, it's going to be for, you know, all the regular consoles. I think like Switch, PS4, I think Steam.
Okay.
Yeah, there's going to be, I think, more details later. I think this was just like an announced trailer. And they kind of showed the footage, but it looked really good. The art style actually looked a lot like Scott Pilgrim, you know, that sort of style, but it looked good. You know, it's, you know, the pixels, not some shitty fucking whatever, you know, crappy Flash mobile game crap. It actually looked good, you know, with the pixels. The 4-player, it looks like there might even be like other hidden characters that you can unlock, because they show like April kind of fighting for a second, right, you know, in a cutscene. So, you know, a lot of people are speculating that she might be playable. Hopefully fucking Casey Jones. How great would that be?
I was just about to say that.
Because we really never had that.
Yeah,
man,
even Splinter, if you could play a Splinter, that would be cool.
You know what I want? I want voiceovers done by Kevin Nash. That's what I want.
He was busy that day.
Yeah.
Taurus Squad.
Yeah. Yeah, Corey Feldman back as Donatello. I'm sure he's available.
He's booked solid, Bob.
Yeah, so I don't know. I saw that and yeah, I don't know. I had to bring it up because that, like I said, that was my geek out moment for last week, seeing good old TMNT back.
Yeah, baby. I can't wait. That it looked like I saw that too. It looked really cool. All right, well, this would be a good time to remind everyone that this level of All Up in Your Geek is brought to you by The High Heeled Gamer, the Oprah of the Nerd World. You can catch her on the website, thehighheeledgamer.com, or live on The Breakdown every Wednesday at 6 p.m. on Facebook. Boom. What's the breakdown, you ask?
I didn't ask.
Well, I asked myself. It's a broad look at all things comic, hero, and villain-related news. Interviews of your favorite actors, writers, and artists of your favorite comic book paraphernalia. You can also catch me on the High Heeled Gamer stream. We're moving away from Diablo 3, and I'm going to get the game title this time right. State of Decay 2. Zombies, bitches. Boom.
Whoa. Serious this time.
All right, gentlemen, I'm excited, and I'm going to tell you why I'm excited. This is going to be our very first retro throwback. I got to find some music. I don't know if I'll find it before this episode releases, but Jesus Christ, I was doing some looking through the internet, and I said, you know what? Let me take a look at video game anniversaries that are coming up. And by the time this episode releases, it will be the 25th anniversary of the original Resident Evil.
Wow.
The very first one for that PlayStation that all of us played, and we were like, holy shit, what a great game. So
the big box.
Yeah, right? So when I realized that this anniversary was coming up, I reached out to you guys and I said, you know what would be cool, not only if we talked about it, but if we could, before we record, get a couple of hours of gameplay in, because I know we still have it in some form somewhere, and just talk about the experience.
And I said, sold the fuck out.
Yeah, money was out. Money turned off his phone immediately. I haven't heard from him. This is the first time I'm talking to him since that conversation.
Muted that text conversation. Couldn't mute that text conversation quick enough.
So, you know, with that in mind, I went back. I played at least 3 hours worth, and you know, I got the old nostalgia feeling with the Capcom intro and the PlayStation intro before that. Like, you know, those things they still have the same impact on me after all these years. But holy shit, that game did not hold up well at all.
What do you mean?
No, and I could see that coming from a mile away.
Oh,
I mean, first of all, that game looked like dog shit.
But I don't remember it looking that terrible. But literally looking at it, I thought I was looking at a bunch of like ink blots walking around in a house.
My recollection, and I haven't played it in years, the director's cut was always my favorite version.
That's the one I played.
Okay, but that game looked really bad, and at the time, it was great. It was fine, you know. It didn't affect you then.
But yeah, I mean, those were the fucking graphics of the time. So that looked like, you know, it was 3D, you know, polygons. That's when it was first kind of, and so yeah, that was like, whoa. I mean, that looked, you know, good at the time because that's what we had at the fucking time. But I just want to, and I'll let Money continue, but I just want to say that fucking unfortunately, that fucking generation, that PS1, N64, even my beloved Sega Saturn, that whole generation has aged the worst. Yeah. The worst. You know, I mean, I'm pretty forgiving. I could deal with fucking ugly ass visuals, you know, because it's me. But it just has aged so of all the generations. I mean, even 8-bit is like sort of aged better than that fucking 32-bit generation has just aged like ass. D-Money, you may continue.
No, Bob, please lead the segment. I mean, 8-bit and 16-bit have aged beautifully.
Oh yeah.
32-bit did not age well, and 64-bit also did not age well.
No.
what I remember about that game was not only it looking like shit, but it moving like shit.
Yes. That's what I was going to say next.
I loved that fucking game. Loved it. But going back to it is one of those things where, I mean, it's a tough sell to go back and really, I mean, what it did at the time was revolutionary.
Right.
Yes.
Kicked off an entire genre. You know, that
absolutely. I mean, that was new and that was different and that was fresh for, you know, whatever the fuck it was, 1995 or whatever it was, 96. But you hit the nail on the head in that control. And I even remember at that time being like, you know, like, hey, these are some funky ass fucking, those tank controls were like, what the fuck? And I even remember back then being like, what the fuck? Like, wait, I gotta hold this to aim and then shoot and I gotta turn around and then hold, and then wait, I need an item and click item and go choose the item. Yeah, I mean, I even remember, I got used to it, but I remember even back then that being like kind of like a fucking big learning curve was just getting used to that fucking system. And, you know, if you needed any other evidence of how whack it was, is nothing has tank controls today. Nothing. And they even went back and the ones with tank controls, and guess what? They got rid of the fucking tank controls because nobody else.
Yep, exactly. No, I tried to move when I first started playing again. I'm moving, and I'm instinctively just moving in the direction that the character's facing because that's what I'm used to. So I'm hitting left on the D-pad, and he's just spinning around. I'm like, what the fuck are you doing?
I mean, we talk about games being too easy today. I talk about it all the time.
Right.
And how, you know, these kids should go back and play some of the shit that we played. And that's one of the titles that it's like, I don't even think they'd be able to complete the game from start to finish because you can't even control the fucking thing.
Yeah. The aiming is off. When I got to that infamous screen where you come across that first zombie in that little room off to the side of the big dining area, and even that looked like shit, but then I remember killing that zombie fairly quickly. This motherfucker got up, and it felt like I unloaded a clip of 15 bullets, and he was still coming. And I'm like, what's going on? So I back up a little bit, and I start trying to knife him, and I can't even hit him with the knife. Like, the timing is all off. I'm like, oh, my God. And just to get to the knife was an ordeal. You got to pause the game, go to the knife, hit the X button, hit equip, unpause the game, and then by then, you forget where the fuck you are.
Go into your inventory, put in a request to have your equipment changed. And look, and I've always said this, who in their right fucking mind would be battling zombies and pick up a hand-to-hand combat weapon like a knife? Where they have to get so fucking close to the zombie. You pick up a 2x4 with nails sticking out of it, a bat, a shovel.
Yep.
You don't pick up a fucking, a knife where you gotta knife the fucking thing to death.
And if you are going to pick up a knife, make it a fucking Crocodile Dundee knife. Like, what was that little shit?
Right. Make it a fucking katana or something, a sword.
Right, or you're in a mansion, grab a fucking broomstick. You could tie the knife to the broom, make a makeshift spear, give yourself some fucking distance. The thing that I loved about those old ones is all the fucking preset camera angles that you had.
Oh,
so you're fighting guys off screen. You can't even see where you're fucking shooting. That was always my favorite part. It's like, I think I got him. I don't know.
Those games are comically bad. They really are.
The story of the story was great. It did feel nostalgic playing it, and even the parts that I got to that I remembered, were great to just do again. Like when you get out onto the little balcony and the 3 birds attack you. When you running through that hallway and the dogs are jumping through the window and you're like, holy shit.
That scared the shit out of me back in the day.
Yep.
I know it did for a lot of people, but I didn't, I was not expecting that. That was a legit video game jump scare. The first one that I could remember.
Yep.
The atmosphere of that game. I mean, the atmosphere of the games in that genre, it's all atmosphere.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It really is. I mean, look at what we're talking about. We're talking about a game that really sucked. The controls sucked. It looked like shit. You couldn't see what the fuck you were doing.
Mm-hmm.
You couldn't control your guy the way you wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
The story was good. I'll give you that. the atmosphere was incredible. And we remember it as an all-time game.
Yep.
All of that shit is washed away because one aspect of the game blew us away, and it really did put you in another time and place. That was not a game you played with the lights off.
Nope. Well, I did play with the lights off, but that was my mistake.
And I think that's why I look back on that game the way I do, in that it was fond for a little bit until Silent Hill came out, and Silent Hill's atmosphere shit all over Resident Evil's atmosphere.
Well, that's what I was going to say too. I think not only do I remember it as like the first, because it was the first survival horror game that I played, but that was the game that set the pace for the entire genre. And then the ones that, some of the ones, I can't say all of them, that came after it really did a good job of capturing that essence and just taking it up a notch. So I don't know if it's a fair comparison, and I know we've been talking about it ad nauseum for the last few weeks about how, Super Mario Brothers was the shittiest, maybe the shittiest game in the franchise, and the other ones were better, but that was the jumping point, and this was the jumping point for me for survival horror. Because you're right, Silent Hill, that first one was freaky as shit. And then you look at like Dino Crisis, which was good.
The first Dino Crisis.
The first one. The rest of them were not good, but that first Dino Crisis was really good also. So it really did a lot for that genre, and it's a shame that the genre is where it is now, because that was probably my favorite genre to play, that survival horror.
Yep. Before Resident Evil, survival horror games, I mean, that genre was like Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street for the NES.
Right.
Which were
maybe Splatterhouse.
But that was more of like a platformer, I mean, they were totally different. They weren't survival horror. It was just a video game with a horror mascot,
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, I wouldn't argue for a second that Resident Evil was the jumping off point for that genre. But going back to our Mount Geekmore or our Mount Rushmore of games, I would have a problem with anybody that put that on a Mount Rushmore, because while it was the beginning of that genre, it sucked a big fat dick.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly how I feel about Super Mario Brothers, where, yes, of course, it was the beginning of that genre. It was what all platformers would strive to be and become. But it's a big fat piece of shit in hindsight.
So if we're making a Mount Rushmore of survival horror games, you would not include the original Resident Evil?
Wait a second. If we're doing a Mount Rushmore of survival horror games, no, I would not include the big box version of Resident Evil. Even if I was going to concede to Resident Evil being on there, it would be the director's cut.
Okay.
See, and this is where I think really clarification is key, because I think you have to really distinguish, what you consider
survival horror,
the most influential or historically relevant, and what is the best game in that genre. See, I can say the same thing in fighting games. If you play the original Street Fighter 2, like of all the Street Fighter 2, that one's the fucking worst.
Yeah.
It's completely unbalanced. It's all fucking glitchy as shit. And all the ones that came after it was way better. So, if you say so, but the historical significance and the influence, and just the holy shit when it arrived factor, I have to say Street Fighter 2. But if you're like, hey, what's the best Street Fighter 2? I would say like something like a fucking Street Fighter Alpha 3, or, even like Super Turbo, something like that is like, that's the best version of that game. But, the most significant is something else. So it's like, it's two different things. The distinction, there has to be some context or clarity as to what we're doing in terms of that Rushmore.
Yeah, but I think I liken it to music. I'm a big music guy. And take a band like the Beatles. Nobody on the face of this planet who has any knowledge of music could even begin to argue the fact that the Beatles weren't influential. And Were they the most influential? Well, sure, we can split hairs all we want till we're blue in the face. But they were influential. And I could still listen to the Beatles today, all these years later, all these decades later, and still marvel at their music. Whereas you take a game like Resident Evil, and it's not half as old. Well, it is half as old, but it's not nearly as old as the Beatles and their music.
Mm-hmm.
And Lou, you couldn't stomach it. And I know I couldn't stomach. I can't even fucking stomach thinking about it. So that, to me, it's like, yes, fine, it was influential. No one is arguing that, Bob. But I don't know. I think Silent Hill. I think Fatal Frame. I just don't think Resident Evil. And then what it became, as the series progressed, it's almost not even survival horror anymore. I mean, what was it? Resident Evil 5, which was like fucking House of the Dead?
Yeah.
So I think I get what you're saying, and I don't disagree with you. As far as influence goes, no problem with saying it's, the flagship game in that genre. But I think that's where it ends for me.
I don't know, man. I think because of the impact that the game had, that it might not make a list of the top 20 greatest video. Maybe 20 is a big number. Let's say 10. Top 10 video games ever made. But it's certain, for me, it's certainly in my top 3 of that genre. Just because of the impact that it left. Some of the other ones didn't have that impact, probably because I didn't stick around long enough to play them. Okay. Like Silent Hill 2 freaked the shit out of me. I don't think I ever went back. Fatal Frame, I was working at GameStop when that game came out. I bought it. I went home. I put it in my PlayStation 2. I played it for about an hour, and then I returned it because I was freaked out. Maybe it's mission accomplished too. Maybe that's what they were aiming for. Maybe they didn't want me to return it, but that's the impact that they wanted. But that was a negative thing for me. Whereas Resident Evil had the dogs jumping through the window and these jump scare moments, but I was enthralled in the story. And maybe I just didn't give those games enough time. Who's to say?
Right. Yeah. Well, if you like story, I mean, Fatal Frame, wow. The first one, the second one, I think there was a third one as well. That you'd really have to go back and play, especially if you're as big a fan of that genre as you say.
Mm-hmm.
And the Silent Hills also. I mean, the imagery in Silent Hill 2 is to this day unlike anything I've ever played before. I mean, wow. That game for me was just, it blew my mind. It really did. It blew my fucking mind. And Resident Evil, it's like, yeah, okay, fine. But you were talking about top 20 being a big number. The original Resident Evil would not be in my top 50 of all-time video games. Like, again, yeah, it was great what it did, but same thing with Super Mario Brothers would not be in my top 50. I wouldn't even have to think about it. It probably wouldn't even make a top 5 all-time survival horror for me.
Wow.
I love all of the Fatal Frames. I love a lot of the Silent Hills. There's some crap Silent Hills spaced out in that franchise, but for the most part, Bob, what was it? Was it Homecoming? What was the Silent Hill we played? Was it PS3?
Yes.
Was that Homecoming?
Homecoming, yeah.
Well, a great story. Looked good. Played great. I mean, there's nothing about that game that would not live up to the original Resident Evil.
Okay.
But that being said, to each their own. I respect your point. I just don't agree with it.
Well, I will say that it was fun to go back and play, even though I had difficulty controlling it and I felt nauseous at points because I'm not used.
And my epilepsy flared up.
Yeah, right. I'm just not used to that level of movement anymore. So it was very like, whoa, wait a minute, I got to adjust here. I can't play this at 42. But it was.
Well, I'm still playing the shits. I'll tell you that. Whatever fucking ugly, shitty games, I'm still playing it. I'm hanging in there, you sons of bitches. And I'm going to fire up Resident Evil 1 on the Sega Saturn because I never played that one, baby. So get ready.
You know why the 32 and 64-bit genres were so awkward? Because they were the first to incorporate quote-unquote 3D. 2.5D and 3D. You know, 16-bit more or less kept everything 2D. And it worked, it flowed, it was simple, we understood it. Then we started getting into the 3D, and nobody knew what the fuck they were doing. Least of all, the people who were coding and programming these fucking things.
Right.
Yeah, that's true.
No,
Very true.
I don't disagree with that at all. You know, I went through and looked at some interesting facts about Resident Evil, and I thought that in looking at this list, the funniest one to me was that Resident Evil 1 holds the Guinness World Record for video game with the worst dialogue ever.
Wow.
Yeah.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Holy shit.
Really?
I could
like this. I would have to think there's some other game with fucking worse.
How do you hold a world record like that? Isn't the Guinness Book of World Records an objective thing? Like, that's totally subjective.
This is the Guinness World Book. I'm sorry, the Guinness Book of World Records Gamers Edition, and Resident Evil was awarded worst dialogue.
Wow. I mean, I don't remember it being egregiously bad.
What? It was.
It was bad, but it was like, you know, it was like fucking B movie kind of bad. But then again, I've played some games where you know, like, my point is, like, I still got enjoyment out of its badness. Like, I thought that added to the charm. Where I played some games with some fucking bad, it was just flat out bad. Like, there was no entertainment value. There was no, like, haha, this is kind of so bad it's good. It was just bad, flat out bad. So I would have to disagree with that.
And there were some games translation-wise, like, there were some games that the translations, they just didn't work and they didn't make sense, and it was just, you know, some sort of an action scene. Yeah, well, right. Well, you see, that one's entertaining, but there were games that I remember the translation just being, like, broken, where it was just like, I'm here to save the princess, you know, and then the antagonist will be like, well, you'll never get my fried eggs, you know, and it's like, well, what? How did this A, get translated incorrectly, and then B, make it through the testing phase?
Yeah.
You know, where and stuff that's just the all your base shit, I mean, that's comically bad. I mean, that is so bad that you test it and you go, we can't change this. Like, this is gold.
Right.
But, you know, I don't know. I mean, again, I remember it being bad, but like you said, I remember it being, like, B-movie bad. I don't remember it being, like, turn down my volume. You know, I don't even want to hear this bad.
I remember it as bad, and I remember it as cheesy. I don't know if I would have awarded it the worst. I think you're right. I'm sure there are games that have worse dialogue. But I guess when I read it, I wasn't surprised, because I'm like, yeah, I remember some of those scenes, some of those cut scenes where they were talking, and it seemed like they were talking like this. And then my response was like this. It seemed very too stagey almost. You know what I mean? So that always stuck out to me too, but I think you're right. It's part of the charm of the game. You know what I mean? So I thought that was a little funny tidbit. But, you know, I don't know if I would go back to play it, like I said, but I did have fun for those few hours that I was sitting there. It felt nostalgic to me. I remember sitting in my room at like fucking 10 o'clock at night with a blanket over my head in the dark, like, oh my God. And then I didn't have a fucking memory card yet at the time, so I had to like keep it paused until I got a memory card. Yeah. So it was, and then I remember the first time that fucking screen popped up. You died. I missed that.
Yeah.
I will say I do miss that.
Yeah, you know, I have to say, and I feel like all of the Resident Evils had equally bad dialogue. You know, it was very cheesy. It was
fair.
I don't know that the first one stood out to me as, you know, head and shoulders worse than the rest.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a fair point.
Well, I mean, I mean, they were all kind of bad, but I do remember that first one. Yeah, definitely. It's like, don't open that door. And it's like, you know, here's the lock picking, Jill. You, the master of unlocking. It's like, you know, all those lines stuck out, you know, even back then.
You know, the game I remember as having really bad dialogue, and it honestly may not be that bad, but it just stuck in my head as being just atrocious. Devil May Cry.
You thought so?
I remember the voice acting being so bad. It was past the so bad it's good phase. It was just so bad it's bad. You know, where it's like, holy shit, this is bad.
You know, I don't remember much of the dialogue because I remember playing the shit out of the first one, and it was so smooth and so much fun to play that it had a good story, but I really wasn't paying attention to how the dialogue sounded because it was weird because it was a dark game, but but a lot of the colors still popped out. Like the red of Dante's jacket popped out, and the orbs popped out, and the enemies popped out. So it kept my interest in that way.
Yeah, but you know what it was for that game for me? And I loved the first Devil May Cry. I loved it. You're right. It was supposed to be a dark game with this cool story, but like he was like, oh, I'm so fucking cool. I'm like kick-ass, bad, cool guy. I'm so fucking cool. And this is a dark game, and it's so evil because I'm the cool guy.
Yeah, no, definitely. But I think that was a product of its time, too, because I think a lot of stuff in late 90s, early 2000s was all about like, yeah, man, like, Poochie the dog, recycle to the extreme. Like there was a lot of that. So yes, but I will give you, it was a little too cool for school in some areas.
Interestingly enough, I don't know if you guys knew this, but the Devil May Cry was supposed to be like Resident Evil. Like that's what they. Yeah. I didn't know that. In looking at all these fun facts, I saw that and I was like, wow, that's interesting. They were trying to take it in a different direction, and then they ended up just making two different titles.
This is for my good buddy, avid listener Ryan. They made Devil May Cry to be, like you said, like Resident Evil, and then they tested it out, and they were like, Resident Evil? This is like the Final Fantasy VII remake that we're going to create in 30 years.
Exactly.
That's funny. Oh, by the way, just a non-related tidbit, since you mentioned that remake, did you know the Final Fantasy VII remake is free this month for download on PS4? That's funny.
You know why it's free?
No.
Because it's fucking garbage.
So did you download it yet, D-Money?
Oh, yeah. I got it queued up in my fucking toilet.
You're going to play it while you simultaneously rewatch WandaVision? Is that what you're going to do?
No, dude, let me tell you. I queued it up to be downloaded directly into the compactor, and Duke wasn't having it.
Duke Nuke was
Duke
not.
Was like, don't bring that shit in here.
Or Duco? Who did that asshole call on?
Duke Nuke. Duke Nuke says no.
Yeah, Duke Nuke.
It's not get that crap out of here. Duke Nuke says no.
No.
Oh, that's funny. All right, well, that was a retro, I guess Capcom throwback really, but mostly on Resident Evil. All right, well, you have reached the end of this level of All Up in Your Geek. Remember to keep those emails coming to allupinyourgeek@gmail.com. Follow us on all forms of social media at All Up in Your Geek. And in closing, geek up.